Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to lay out in fairly simple terms exactly why the government's so-called plans for growth cannot possibly grow the economy, even in theory, let alone practice. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this very childish economy growth theory of the trickle-down economists such as Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, it goes like this. Most people have jobs, and those jobs are in organisations run by rich people. Yes, a lot of people are employed by the state in public services, but we don't like those jobs. So because rich people own the businesses that provide the jobs we do like, if we could get those rich people to provide more jobs, then there'd be more money for poorer people who can't afford their own businesses. And that would make, so you think to yourself, okay, what makes rich people provide more jobs? Well, what they say is, well, if we cut their taxes, they'll have more money and so spend it on making their businesses bigger so there are more jobs. Only it's rubbish, even on a very simplistic level. How's that supposed to work? Oh boy, I seem to have been given a load of extra money by the Tory government. Good show, good show. What are you going to do with it? I know, I'll employ more people. What? Let us imagine you are a wealthy business owner. Are you going to increase the size of your workforce just because you saved more money on taxes? No, of course not. Why would you? So what would make you increase the size of your workforce? Well, having the capacity to sell more of your product, of course. If your business is just about selling what it produces, there's no point in producing more because you won't sell it. And if your business is easily selling its products, it's like, we need to produce more, you could easily sell more, then of course you'd expand your business whether you get tax cuts or not. Even if you needed to get a loan to pay for it from a bank to expand, you would do that because you're going to make money. And the bank would be happy to lend you the money for a business that is desperately struggling to meet demand. It's obvious enough. In order to attract investment, or the sort of investment that actually benefits us, you need the capacity to sell more products. It's that simple. That means you either need more customers or you need current customers to want to buy more things. Usually a combination of the two. So how do you get that? Well, you open up access to more markets. But Brexit has done the opposite. We've raised trade barriers with our largest market, Europe. It's now harder and more expensive to sell customers in Europe. Outside of Britain anyway. We were told we would compensate with better market access around the world. But this doesn't work either. First of all, most other countries are much poorer than European countries. So they don't have the money to buy as much, as we've lost in European trade, even if they wanted to. Secondly, it costs a lot more to export outside Europe because of the cost of transport, costs that have increased as a result of disruption to oil supplies. And oil supplies are frequently disrupted because every single oil producer in the world at some point gets a batshit crazy government in that pisses off the rest of the world in some way or other. Political instability is never far away from oil production. Thirdly, it takes a lot longer for you to export stuff over there, so people can't order things as quickly. They'd prefer to order from their neighbours who not only are culturally more similar and more likely to produce products they want, but it's quicker to get it. Fourth, the post-Brexit trade deals we've been agreeing on are on worse terms than the ones the EU has with those same countries. So we have poorer market access outside Europe compared to the access we'd have had as EU members, or at least members of the single market. So our pool of potential customers all over the world is lower. This factor alone means attracting investment is much more difficult. There is still investment. There are businesses that can still export competitively, whether in Europe or elsewhere. There are also businesses that are set up to sell to the British market. But those businesses would have attracted investment in the past anyway. Nothing has changed to make those businesses more competitive. So the overall level of investment potential is down. This is why the overall level of investment itself has been down. This is the thing. The real theory, the theory that makes sense, actually matches the data. Investment has been down since the Brexit referendum in 2016. Not just when COVID happened, not just when Ukraine happened. 2016, when Brexit referendum happened. Not just when we left. Investors knew what was going on. They knew we were suddenly a less safe bet as soon as we voted to leave, and the upwards trend in investment dropped overnight and has never recovered. So tax cuts don't stimulate investment. In fact, tax cuts reduce the level of investment. So how does that work? Well, let's say businesses do have that potential to attract more customers. So let's say we've lowered our trade barriers and all of a sudden demand for our products is up. Businesses want to produce more to supply those customers. Great. But it's still not that straightforward for the business to just expand. Because expansion means taking on more staff. Okay, great, that's what we want. But can they get the staff? The number one issue that businesses complain about to the Bank of England, according to the governor right now, is a shortage of skilled workers. They can't get the staff. If you can't get the workers, you can't expand your business, so you can't have growth. So how do you get skilled workers? Well, immigration's one way, and a large economy will need to immigrate to a certain extent, but you also want homegrown talent, don't you? You want your own citizens to share in this. That means you invest in education. The problem is that the Tories cut funding for education 12 years ago and have been doing it ever since. As a teacher, I can tell you there were a load of programmes that were funded by Labour. I saw them developing in the first half of my teaching career when Labour were in government to upskill the UK population. They don't exist now. In order to get skilled workers, we need properly funded education. That comes from taxation. You need those workers to be motivated if they're to do the best for your business. That means they need good pay, good conditions, good work-life balance. But the Tories have policies of suppressing worker pay. They have general policies of deregulating, so worsening working conditions, and their attitude to productivity is just work more hours. So they keep pay low and bills high so that workers are forced to take on extra hours. They don't consider that fewer hours worked with morale high is more productive than more hours worked in a state of drudgery. The business also needs its workforce to be fit and healthy. Your workers aren't helping the business if they're ill or injured. Enabling this comes partly from that properly funded education in terms of prevention, as well as health and safety regulations and people having enough money to eat healthily. But it also comes from a properly funded healthcare system when illness and injury do occur. Topically right now, it's been mentioned that when Labour in power, you could get guaranteed an appointment with your GP in 2 days. Now the Tories are promising that if things go well, if their plan goes well, and they don't have a plan, by the way, you might be able to get one within 2 weeks. That's their aim, not what is happening right now. Their aim is to make sure that everyone can get an appointment within 2 weeks, when it was 2 days under Labour. And as I say, they don't even have a plan for that. It's just an aim. How pathetic. Then what else does the business need? Well, it needs good transport network in order to be able to get materials in quickly and inexpensively and ship them out again. Both road and rail, very important. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling goods or services. You also need good transport if you need workers to go and visit a customer elsewhere in the country or elsewhere on the continent or elsewhere in the world. So transport, very important. That needs investment, which needs paying for from taxes. The Tories have this notion that the market will provide. Well, guess what? It hasn't. 12 years later, it hasn't. Public services has gone down. The market didn't provide them because there's no money in it for them. The state needs to provide it. You also need good communications. That means good quality, fast broadband. Our internet in the UK is embarrassingly pathetic. This is a barrier to business. Businesses also need educating on how to use communications. It's ridiculous just how few businesses in the UK even have a website. And of those who do, very few seem to know how to use it to connect to customers. Most of them just put a Facebook page. Oh, here's our address and our phone number. All right, how's that going to get me to want to buy from you? All of this requires state intervention and funding, which comes from taxation. And then we need to go back to our old friend here, showing a good positive correlation between tax burden and GDP per capita. All these people who say, oh, you can't tax your way to growth. Really? Because the data says otherwise. Basically, those countries with the highest GDP per capita are generally the ones with the highest tax burden. Don't point to little outliers. You always get outliers. There's a very clear positive correlation here between tax burden and GDP per capita. And that is because taxes are needed for infrastructure and businesses need the infrastructure. So tax cuts are not a driver for growth at all. The theory even doesn't stand up, and the practical data blows the concept out the water. The details of generating growth are not easy, which is why what you need to do is to listen to expert economists and unions to better understand what's actually missing so that they can put it right. But the basic principles are very straightforward. What Truss is doing is described as an experiment. It's not an experiment. The experiment has been tried and tried again. It keeps failing. Carrying out a more extreme version of it, considered too insane even by the people who formulated the idea, is not going to unlock this growth. It's a little bit like someone a few hundred years ago, oh, it was a terrible headache. Well, we'll put a leech there, bleed you out. Oh, that doesn't seem to be working. And so Liz Truss comes along, I'll tell you what, I'll blow your head off. Proper bleeding, that'll do the trick. No, it won't. I mean, it'll cure the headache, I suppose. And when Liz Truss finally falls, as fall she must, the UK economy will be smaller than when she took over. That is certain. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.